Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 9th of November, comes to you from London. And I'm just remembering that I do these videos on YouTube. Chartstoday.com is where you can get them every day. And please feel free to like or share these videos. On LinkedIn, I'm limited to 10 minutes, so they tend to be a bit shorter for LinkedIn. I'm grateful for any likes or shares or comments. I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there's anything you'd like me to cover, then just let me know. So yesterday, we looked at time horizon, and I got quite a few questions on this, and so I wanted to just explain a little bit more about these price targets and how they work. So the first thing to think about is that targets are about thrust. Now, these were derived from a point and figure technique that was developed decades ago and kind of lost with computerization, but this is the first time that we've really put these targets on time-based charts. So on point and figure, there is no time in the chart, so you don't know when the target might happen, and a lot of people don't want to use point and figure charts. So the targets are about thrust, and the ingredients are that you need a low, and from a low then you need a thrust off a low. Now the bigger that thrust, the bigger the target. You need a pullback, and that's in point and figure terms, that's normally 3 boxes, or what we call units, and this idea of a unit is really important. And then you need to move higher by at least 1 box or 1 unit of price. And then once you've done that, you've activated this upside target, and then that gives you a price projection as to where the price will go. Now, the difference is we can actually think about where these go in terms of time on the chart. Now, coming back to that idea yesterday of time horizon, what that means is that on different time frame charts, we use different unit sizes. So I normally start with a daily chart. By the way, with Updata, you can run on up to 30 different data sources: Bloomberg, Icon, Trayport, whatever you're running, you can run these different services in. So I'm just going to open a chart of crude oil, Brent crude, and there is the chart of Brent crude. This is the daily chart. I like to use the cloud because it just gives me a feel as to whether I'm above or below the cloud. We've just moved back below the cloud. All I have to do is hit the T key, and it puts all the trends and targets on because it's rules based on those ideas of thrust. It's basically, this is the setup, and this is where the targets come from. And so this is the daily chart, medium term, and it's automatically used a 0.5% log scale. That's my setting. And you can see how these targets are given and met, little upside targets given and met. When they're not bold, that's when they're not bold, that's when they've been met. When they are bold, they're in train. So we do have this downside potential on the daily chart for crude oil at the moment. So that's really quite interesting. And looking at the long-term chart, this is the weekly chart, remembering those percentages I talked about, where you had the 0.5% and 1%. On the weekly chart, I'm using 1% of the price, and you can change all these in the settings here, but that's where the percentage is coming from, because it knows it's a long-term chart, it's a weekly chart. And here we see targets for crude oil to 146, 159, anytime in 2025 at the moment, based on this trajectory. Interestingly, we're waiting for another target to activate. This is the orange target. So thinking back to this diagram, that's where it hasn't activated yet. So we haven't moved above the thrust level. And so here we're waiting for that target to activate. That points to 150 as well. 150 is looking like quite a good long-term upside target, probably 18 months to 2 years out. And there's an even bigger target, but we don't worry about the big targets because we worry about these ones first. But this implies that if there was a war or something going on, then we could see oil pop to very big levels. So we'd have to break that previous resistance around 125. So really interesting. We are below the cloud though, so that's on the weekly chart, so don't get too excited. So coming back to the daily chart, I could easily clear that and go to a 60-minute chart. Remembering the daily was 0.5%, just press the T key again. It puts all the trends and targets on, and now we're on the 60-minute time frame. This is short term. It says it on my chart. This is short term. We do have this short term target down 9%, so that's really quite interesting there. And we've got a little mini upside target. We are below the cloud, so crude oil is looking quite bearish at the moment. And of course, if you're very short term, you could go to the 1-minute chart, and this is just literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Today we've got upside targets. This one's just been activated. It was orange on my chart when I last looked at it. It's just been activated, so we have got upside potential of 81, 81.66. So interesting. These were the downside targets, a little bit better today. That's if you're short-term trading crude. That's what you want to be looking at. Now, just let's look at the markets generally. Here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin looking really quite positive. We're seeing a new upside target that's activated to 61,800. This one that's been in for a while, that was given in March, 50,000. That's on the medium-term chart. On the very short term, this is on the short-term 60-minute chart, we see these targets being generated. This one has pretty much already been met. And again, I could change the slope to curve fit these targets if I wanted to, but I'm just happy with my default setting, which is a slope of 2 to 1. So looking at the just some of the other things that are going on, of course, we're seeing the futures higher this morning on the S&P and the NASDAQ. So US markets look set to open higher there, really quite interesting. Looking at European markets, we're up on the FTSE future, up 0.25% there. We are waiting for these downside targets to activate, and we did have this target activate yesterday for the FTSE, waiting for this upside target to activate. This is medium term and short term. We can look at other markets as well, of course. I look at the Aussie market. In fact, one of my Aussie stocks was up 27% overnight. So we are still seeing stocks that are bucking the trends. You need to be finding those stocks that have got upside train tracks in the targets. And of course, you can scan for those. We've already looked at Brent crude, looking at some of the other commodities. Wheat, very clear down tracks on wheat. We've got these downward tracks. Here's the short-term chart for wheat, and then the upside targets. Lots of downward targets there for wheat. The same is true for corn. So as much as we hear all these fears about food inflation, at the moment, we've got really clear downward tracks. Waiting for these upside targets to activate. That's why they're orange, but for the moment, the red ones are in train. Looking at gold, that's been pretty interesting as well. Struggling at 2,000 on gold, so really quite key there. And we are just really struggling to get through the 2,000 mark. And taking a look at some of the stocks, we've got Apple, still really on those downward targets there on Apple. We do have a short-term upside target, so I'm 7% higher. This is a counter trend move. Counter trend moves can be very dramatic, but of course we are still looking at lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low. So the pattern is bearish below the cloud. One stock that is bucking the trend is Microsoft. That made a new all-time closing high last night. Here we see the targets for Microsoft looking very bullish there on the upside, and on the short term these targets were given, so really quite key there. And if we look at the long-term chart, you can see that break to higher. A shortage of targets on the 1% chart, but if we went back down to the 0.5% chart, we would see that there is real train tracks going on there with Microsoft. So that's really key. You can change those units. Now that's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. Remember to like if you like these videos. Please like, keeps me going, and share it. I'm always happy to answer any comments, questions you have. Bye for now.